I now call to order the meeting for August 21st of the City of West Sacramento City Council, Redevelopment Successor Agency, and Finance Authority. We will begin with a land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that the land on which we live, work, learn, and commune is the original homelands of the indigenous people of West Sacramento, who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We acknowledge and we thank the original inhabitants who have occupied, maintained, and secured the place and who still exist on this land. We respect and celebrate the many diverse indigenous peoples still connected to this land on which we gather. Thank you. We would like to invite our guests to join the council and staff in the pledge, which will be led by Sean Franklin, who, by the way, as he's walking up, please come up, sir, is part of the team that made sure that we got the lights on today. So thank you so much.
No problem. I pledge allegiance to the flag of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, justice for all.
The council did not meet in closed session this evening, and that brings us to item 1, which is presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of the council. As is noted on our agenda, we are prohibited by state law from discussing or taking any actions on items that are brought up under item 1, but it provides an important opportunity for a public forum. We do ask that anyone wishing to address the council on this or any other item this evening to please fill out a request to speak card and return it to the clerk. In front of the clerk, there is a timer to ensure that everyone has a chance to be heard, and we ask that all comments be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Also in front of the clerk is a chart which indicates which agenda item the council is currently considering. We accept the request to speak cards up to the conclusion of the reading of the staff report on any particular agenda item. Once the staff report has been read and the council questions and public testimony have begun, we do not accept any further speaking requests on that particular agenda item. If you are addressing a specific agenda item, please turn in your card as soon as possible, but definitely before the conclusion of the staff report for that particular agenda item. We also recognize that for some, speaking in public can cause anxiety. So we request that there be no applause or boos, catcalls, or other demonstrations. Furthermore, so that we may maintain a civil discourse here in our chambers, we ask that those in attendance and those addressing the City Council abide by the Code of Council posted by the request to speak cards and on the podium. We ask that you do not speak in loud, threatening, offensive, abusive, or other disrespectful language that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting. Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak?
Yes, ma'am. Guy Stevenson?
First thing I want to say is I appreciate Public Works, the people that do code enforcement, and parks. They're doing a good job. I appreciate them. Now, on the flip side of that, here's the bad news. I think that you guys, you ladies are doing a great job. However, I don't think that the city over here is transparent enough. I noticed that a lot of deals are going through the city manager. And, I do a lot of background on different people that are candidates. And I know that at least three of you are wanting votes. I'm not going to get into the politics about voting, but I think that people need to be more transparent with the city instead of doing all your business, which I call mob dealings, when they go to the back room and they talk about it and then the public doesn't know what you're doing. And, that's the only thing I'm saying. If you're going to do stuff, the public should know, because it's taxpayers' money that's paying for all this stuff. We all pay taxes. We love West Sacramento, but we want to know what you guys are doing over here. And some stuff is not, public. You do a lot of stuff in the back. And I'm not hating on you guys. I'm not. I just think that people need to be more transparent with any position that you hold. And the very last thing is that I take care of a couple special needs people. And I just love them to death. They're my life. They keep me balanced. That's what I do over here for a public service. These special needs people are my life. I go to Rite Aid, get their meds, I make sure they eat, and I make sure they stay healthy, because that's what I want. I want people to stay healthy. All right? That's why I love West Sacramento, because it is a good city. I wish all of you that are running for office, I wish you your votes. I hope that you can make a difference and maybe change up the politics with being transparent. Because, you know, people look at your backgrounds and they see what you're about. And there's nobody up there that I dislike. It's just that I think that you need to be more transparent with the public in what you're doing. That's all I'm asking. You know what I mean? And I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way. But anyway, ladies, Mayor and City Council members, have a really nice, blessed night.
Thank you.
Denise Cotto? Sorry, Cotco.
To say how soon they forget. It's only been 13 years since I've been here last. I wanted to talk to you today about the tree ordinance. And your tree ordinance was put in place in 2004, so 20 years ago. And it doesn't make a distinction between what happens on a residential property and what happens on a commercial property. So in my case, I applied to get for the tree ordinance to have a tree taken out of my front yard. It's a big old tree, and it's been there since I've been there. When I moved in 47 years ago, it was already a big old tree. But since then, you know, we've had the drought, and we've had dewatering of all the homes in our neighborhood as they built. And my house, for example, is a residential lot. It's 2 blocks from where she grew up, so she knows they're not big lots. But when I applied to get the tree taken out, which of course we're gonna pay a couple $1,000s to have that done, I was told I could do so, but I would have to plant 38 trees in my front yard to replace that one tree. Now, the only person who's happy about that is my 4th grade teacher, because she taught me what 3.14 does to change something from diameter to circumference. So it was the first time I ever got to use pi, but 38 trees. So we talked again to the tree guy, and he said, well, you could appeal, everybody appeals. So I asked my daughter to check on the appeals process, and she found a menagerie of what the person, whoever does your appeals, but it was a hoop that I don't know how to jump through. So she's been working on that. She still hasn't gotten all the information under something called a portal from the city, but I could do that. I could appeal, or I could plant the 38 trees, or I could pay the city $12,000 to take a tree out of my front yard. Now, I already have 7 other trees in my front yard. PG&E has taken 2 of them out because I'm one of the 2 streets that has lines. So my husband, repasts were going down. She's looking to see how to appeal. I'm trying to find a bond that the city says I have to have if I plant a tree. So I called 5 different insurance companies who kind of laughed me out of town, because nobody's going to give a bond to somebody in California to make sure a tree survives. So we took the tree out we trimmed the tree and found out it had carpenter ants, so we were able to take the tree out. But that doesn't help the next guy. I think you should look at your tree ordinance and say it should relate to the size of your property. Why does a developer with 40 acres have to plant 38 trees, or a residential lot that's probably not even a quarter of an acre have to plant 38 trees? That's all. Thank you.
Sorry. The Latino Information and Resource Center?
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. Council members, staff, and most importantly, West Sacramento residents, good evening. My name is Maria Grijalva. I am here on behalf of the Latino Information and Resource Center. We're the nonprofit organization that brought district elections to West Sacramento. It took many years of efforts to bring district elections to West Sacramento, but it was really worth it. District elections empower voters. It gives voters a voice, especially marginalized communities without a political voice, specifically people of color. It allows neighborhood leaders to run for public office without having to mortgage their home. And so this effort was really because of a love that I have for my community. And I wanted to tell you about Martin Luther King. He is my hero. And he actually died and gave up his life in an effort so that all of us could have a sense of fairness in our life. Martin Luther King would be in favor of district elections. I guarantee you that. On the other hand, if Clarence Thomas presided over my lawsuit over in Yolo County, he would have voted against district elections. He would have been in favor of cracking Broderick and Bright. And this is so sad to see. So now, it's been 2 years since the courts found that the Voting Rights Act was being violated. Right here, all of us witnessed it. It was an effort to divide and conquer Broderick and Bright. It's been 2 years since Mayor Guerrero voted in favor of district elections. I was here and present when all that happened. And Martha Guerrero reminds me of Martin Luther King. She's my Martin Luther King. It's also been 2 years since Dr. Early voted to violate the law, and other council members here. And that is sad and to see. And Dr. Early reminds me of Clarence Thomas. And that is sad, 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 sad. And I wish that wouldn't be the case. But I say that because the News Ledger was talking about Dr. Early running against Mayor Guerrero for mayor. And that is like, well, hello. So anyway, I just wanted to share my public comments and my concerns for the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Robin Davis?
Hello, I'm Robin, and I live in my 160 square foot, semi-off-grid, tiny home on wheels on my undeveloped residential property just down the road in Bright. And I'm here today to represent several community members of the Bright and Broderick neighborhood. We are extremely saddened by the closure of our Bright and Broderick Community Center, and we composed a letter to appeal to the Buena Vista tribe on options to help keep the center open that we would like to share with you, which states, on July 17th, the Bright and Broderick Community Center announced on social media that it would no longer be holding events after August 31st, just 6 months after the grand opening. This letter is to appeal to the tribe and humbly request that the sale of the BBCC property be postponed until after alternatives can be explored with the community and City of West Sacramento leadership. In April 2024, the Bright and Broderick Community Center was open to serve the community of West Sacramento, but especially residents on the northern side of town, which has been underinvested in for decades. The site of the BBCC is the shuttered Bright VFW post, a designated California historic building. Our community was thrilled to learn that the property was purchased by the Buena Vista Rancheria of Miwok Indians. For the purpose of opening the center, the tribe made many needed renovations to the building and also invested time and energy to preserve the building's rich history. In the 6 months it's been open, the center has hosted many community events and private bookings were visibly increasing. Community events included free math tutoring sessions, community and nonprofit meetings, exercise classes, coffee and tea gatherings, art classes, native jewelry making classes, repair workshops, free CPR classes, and on and on. Community members have expressed willingness to research and promote various profit structures so the tribe is not operating the BBCC at a loss. We would greatly appreciate a discussion with your leadership to discuss alternatives before you move to sell the property and allow some time to develop a strategy that benefits the tribe and our community. To that end, the community is requesting that the tribe retain the property and keep it operating for community events for a minimum of a year. So that is the letter that we sent and requested that we sent to tribal leadership. And Bright and Broderick neighbors would appreciate any kind of comment or acknowledgement or recommendations from council on this unfortunate turn of events. We'd like to hear from you guys. We would also like to know the date of the next public meeting for the Bright Park Master Plan as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rhonda Pope Flores.
Ooh, I thank you for your comments, Robin, and everything that the love that was given for the community center. I am very sad to see what is happening. However, for reasons I had stepped aside as a chairwoman, I decided to step down, and little did I know that the chief of staff for our tribe would convince my council to turn around and sell all of our assets. But he has. And so I haven't been around because I've been trying to put out a lot of fires and save a lot of properties. But this one is dear to my heart. There are many things the city can do. That parking lot's red tagged. You need to let people know that, because it shouldn't be easy to be sold off when it still has a red tagged parking lot. And I also just want to say, I guess I'm going to gripe a little bit. You were part of the problem. You caused a lot of issues when we were trying to bring something good. And I went under the bus and got run over and over and over when I stood up for this community. And I tried to bring something good. I did bring something good. And whoever gets that building will always know it's me. Every little thing in that building is me. My love, my heart, my tears, my sweat, my worry, my everything went into that building. So I urge the city of West Sacramento to work with the tribe. I urge you to please not let this ever happen again, because I will tell you that because of the process that we had to go through and we were trying to do something good, I ended up stepping away from my tribe. And this was part of it. I stepped down and moved away because I didn't believe in the direction we were going in. But at the same time, I have to defend my council because they were frustrated because of what took place in order to get those doors open. So I partially hold the city of West Sacramento responsible for some of those actions, and learn from them and reform and make it easier when someone comes to bring something good to the community. Don't make it hard for us, because this is what happens.
We have no additional requests to speak on this item.
Okay, with that, before I move on to our consent agenda, I actually want to turn it over to our city manager.
Yes, thank you. Request from staff on item 8. There was a mix-up with the distribution of the agenda materials for that item, and we're requesting just to continue it over to the September 18th council meeting.
All right, with that being said, do we need to take a vote on that?
It can be part of the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay. All right. So then we will now move on to the consent agenda, where items 2 through 12 with, again, the note of removing item 8 will be on there. Do any of my council members have any items to remove, questions, or comments?
I'd like to comment on item number 3 as well.
Okay. Councilmember Orozco as well as Councilmember Cepizio Hall. Councilmember Alcala? All right. Madam Clerk, do we have any request to speak on any of these items?
We have no request to speak on any of the consent items.
All right, then I will bring it back to council. Let's hear about item 3, questions.
Thank you. Less questions, more comment. Thank you so much for approaching the dais. Tonight is a very special night to see this before us for approval on consent. I know that this could be a standalone item in and of itself with a presentation on the regular agenda. Quite frankly, since 2016, I have been looking forward to receiving this item and moving this forward. I know there are a lot of constituents in the State Streets community. I actually am a resident in the State Streets, have been for about a decade now. Love my streets. I know that they have been in immense need. Tonight, we get a chance to consider the approval of the award for construction to George Reed for the pavement rehabilitation project. And I must say, I know that there are going to be a lot of happy people in the State Streets who have been looking forward to this day. For context, the State Streets is one of the oldest communities in the city of West Sacramento. We have lots of very mature trees. Unfortunately, you know, those trees wreak havoc on the sidewalk and on the pavement as they root. And, you know, just even walking down the streets oftentimes can be somewhat of an obstacle course. And we've, you know, received many, you know, correspondence and comments from members of the community who have been hopeful that we can do something about it. So without further, I just wanted to say I approve of this item. I'm refreshed. I know that Councilmember Sulpicio Hall, who is the council member that represents the majority of that area, even though I reside in the area, it's kind of funny that works, but I am sure that she has other positive things to say as well. I think that this is an uplift in the complexion of a very sorely needed bit of attention in this area, and so I'm very excited to see it moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Orozco. Councilmember Cepizio Hall?
Thank you, Bridget, thank you for all of your work on this. Echoing my colleagues' comments that this is an incredibly important project for 4 and the State Streets, and there have been a lot of people who've been very interested in the updates and what's happening, and you've been very active with communicating with everybody, and so thank you for that. I do have a question because, as my 4-year-old would say, quoting Bluey, it's taken ages and ages to get here. And to keep us on track, the staff report has construction is anticipated to begin in October with the concrete work done in spring 2025. Is there anything you can anticipate that could possibly delay this project?
So my name is Bridget McGinnis, and I work in capital projects and the project manager for this project. The only anticipated delay at the moment would be weather. Obviously, we don't have control over that, and for doing roads, you do need certain temperatures and not for rain. You can do concrete work in the wet season, but other treatments don't work as well, and obviously, we really want this project to move the residents in the area forward.
We have a website for this project that stays fairly up to date on what's going on, but you know, construction design takes a long period of time. What's the plan for updating as this moves forward if there are delays due to it?
So we will keep the website up to date. I actually can manage that myself, which is a very nice thing that we can do. My information is on the website, so anyone can contact me if they so choose, or put in an Excel request. That is always an option. If the schedule changes, that will definitely be posted. If it changes drastically, we may choose to send out letters, but that would be a large change. But day-to-day website would be the best option.
And then I also heard that we are likely planning not a ribbon cut, be a groundbreaking for this project
Yes.
as well. Will the residents in the neighborhood be invited to that?
Yes, we can post that on the website. We have not chosen a date yet, though.
The residents are ready. The neighborhood is ready for this. Anybody who drives the neighborhood is ready for this. I know you're ready for this. So thank you for all your work, and we're excited to move this forward.
Thank you so much for your comment.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you so much. It really is a good project to see moving forward. I know Councilmember Bezio Hall and I, when we actually, a couple of years, when we were walking through for the disaster, all the rain that was happening, I know we had knocked on a few doors and they had actually asked about this project. And so it really is good to see it moving forward.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. With that, may I have a motion to? Okay, but just thank you. To approve the consent agenda, but also remove item 8. Again, that will be continued for the next meeting. So I have a motion by Alcala and a second by Orozco. Perfect. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Sulpicio Hull.
Aye.
Councilmember Alcala.
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Early.
Aye. Right, and with that, we are now moving to our regular agenda item, which are items 13 through 14. On item 13, it is the consideration of Resolution 24-86, authorizing the issuance and sale of City of West Sacramento Infrastructure Financing District Number 1. We have Roberta Raper, Finance Director, here to present.
As Roberta's getting ready with her presentation, she actually asked me to give a quick intro to this item just for some historic context background on the Bridge District IFD. We had a sort of a companion item earlier tonight. We had the first meeting in a while of the EIFD, Public Finance Authority Board, looking at a similar item having to do with the citywide EIFD. This is only for the Bridge District. The origin of this district dates back to after the city lost redevelopment, along with all the other redevelopments in the state, back in 2012. It was one of the early solutions to the overall issue of how do we continue to invest in infrastructure to allow the Bridge District to build out according to its original plans. And so while tonight's item may seem sort of procedural in its nature, it is a significant item in terms of the city's overall history with keeping infrastructure investment going. In this case, we want to be really clear, this is only money that is originated from and can only be used in the Bridge District for the time being. And it's also noteworthy, I'm sure Roberta's going to reiterate this, but it's not new taxes per se, it's existing property taxes that are already being paid by property owners that is simply being reinvested into the district for infrastructure. So with that intro, I'll turn it over to Roberta. Thanks.
Thank you, City Manager Laurel. I appreciate that. I'm Roberta Raper, the Finance Director for the city. So as Aaron mentioned, in 2014, the City Council established the Bridge District IFD pursuant to Ordinance 1412. The district's been operating since formation successfully as one of 3 such districts in the state. Tax increment revenues are approaching, at the time we wrote the report, I said about $600,000 annually. It's now closer to about $900,000 annually in this fund. And there are 20 years remaining on the district, which leaves little time to issue debt if we plan to. So first, the IFD was established for the purpose of issuing debt to construct necessary infrastructure within the Bridge District and to pay for that debt using the tax increment generated on the increase in property values surrounding the investment. The bonds would be issued by the IFD and would not be an obligation of the city, as Mr. Laurel said. Because the IFD tax increment bonds would be one of the first, if not the first, to be publicly issued in the state, staff believes it's necessary to pursue a judicial validation action, for which the purpose would be to validate, among other things, the IFD, the financing structure, and the method of sale of the bonds. In order to file a judicial validation action, the council must first approve the resolution authorizing the IFD to issue debt. We don't yet know what the amount of the debt will be, and we want this validation to apply to any future debt the IFD issues. So the amount on the resolution is simply the projection of total debt that could be issued based on the revenue projections for the life of the district at the time it was formed. That number's been inflated using CPI to today's dollars, and so it's asking you to authorize us to issue $233 million in debt, which we are obviously not going to do. The outcome of the validation action will dictate how certain elements of the financing will need to be designed. So as such, staff will return at a later date for specific approval of a particular bond issue, meaning we will not leave and issue bonds without coming back to you again. After you take this action tonight, we will have to return for approval to issue debt in the future every time. So tonight, we're asking you to approve Resolution 24-86, which authorizes the sale and issuance of IFD bonds in an amount not to exceed $233 million. Authorize the execution and delivery of a fiscal agent agreement prescribing the terms and conditions of the bonds. Appoint Lozano Smith as Bond and Disclosure Counsel and Del Rio Advisors as the municipal advisor in connection with the sale of the bonds. And to authorize initiation of a judicial validation action with respect to the IFD and the bonds. And that concludes my presentation, and I would take any feedback or questions.
One other quick note that I meant to say is there is a distinction between the EIFD and the IFD in terms of the board. So the IFD law was what predated the EIFD law. At the time, the city council serves as the board of the IFD, and that's still the case. For the EIFD, the law was changed so that we have a separate district, separate board with 2 public members and 3 council members. So that's why you're sitting today as essentially the IFD board. The Public Finance Authority for the EIFD board met earlier. It's a separate process, but it is similar. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Roberta. Thank you, City Manager, as well. Do any council members have any questions on the staff presentation? No, okay. Any public comment?
We have no request to speak on this item.
Okay. With that, may I have a motion then to approve the recommended action?
So moved. Second.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Spezio Hall, seconded by Councilmember Orozco. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Sulpicio Hull.
Aye.
Councilmember Alcala.
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Early.
Aye. All right, with that, the motion passes. Thank you so much. And you're going to stay up because you have another one.
I do.
Okay. All right, next is item number 14, is the consideration of Resolution 24-42, adopting midterm amendments to the Operations and Maintenance, O&M, and Capital Improvement Program, CIP, budgets for fiscal year 24-25. This is the second reading and adoption of the ordinance. And we have Roberta here again, our Finance Director, to present.
Thank you. And as we had a very detailed budget workshop on this information last month, tonight's presentation will be brief and will provide basically a general fund update for the last fiscal year ended June 30th, 2024. We'll go over the changes since the workshop, provide a brief summary of the midterm budget proposals at a very high level, and we'll provide an update of the general fund after funding the midterm budget proposals. And then we'll follow with a brief discussion of the other actions requested of the council tonight, and we'll land on the recommended action, at which point I can take questions. So. All right. So this slide gives an update on fiscal year 23-24. Again, it's the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2024. It is important to note that we're still very much within the accrual period for the last fiscal year, and there's a lot of year-end work still to do. So even though we're a couple of months beyond June 30th, these numbers are not final. But the general fund is projected to end fiscal year 23-24 with $81 million in revenues to fund $74 million in expenses, leaving an operating surplus of $7 million for the year. These added revenues are expected to continue into 2024, 25, and beyond, and were expected. So we'll talk a little bit more about that and what that means for this year. But after funding one-time expenses of $14.8 million for the year, the net use of fund balance, also expected, was about $7.1 million. That leaves a balance of $10.2 million in the general fund. So the City Council adopted the 24-25 budget on June 26, 2023. Since that time, there have been several changes, including labor negotiations and updated MOUs and benefit summaries for all labor groups, mid-year adjustments that took place in January for the 23-24 budget, which have ongoing annual impacts going forward, and as mentioned previously, updated information on our major revenue sources. So for 24-25, this slide shows that even with the expected increase in revenues, of $6.2 million for the year. The net surplus is actually less than what it was when the budget was adopted last June by about $300,000, $293,065. So this is actually great news in that the revenue growth has allowed the council to provide increases in salaries and benefits to all labor groups over the past year to further its recruitment and retention goals. However, there's a significant gap remaining, primarily in lack of staffing in operating departments that directly serve the residents of our mighty little city. So what this shows us, however, is before getting into 24-25 midterm budget proposals, we have a surplus of little over 3.1 million for the year. So now getting into the changes since the workshop. This slide shows a summary of the changes since the workshop last month. There is nearly $5 million in added budget requests, net of reduced revenue projections. The changes are primarily in added budgets related to the IFD and the EIFD. So now that the Public Financing Authority for the EIFD has adopted budget policies, the previously appropriated funds may be used, and the remaining fund balance in the EIFD fund may be appropriated as planned for the I Street Bridge project. And so that is what is proposed here. There's an appropriation of $4.5 million of EIFD funds for the bridge project. Total CIP changes are about $4.7 million. The other $220,000 is additional funds for the State Streets Road Rehabilitation Project contract that you just voted to approve. You'll also notice that we reduced the anticipated revenue increases for fiscal year 24-25 by almost $500,000. That is primarily due to the work order and ICAP reimbursement revenues, which reimburse project management staff for time spent directly managing projects. As mentioned last month, this revenue could be volatile, and this change just shows that it really can be volatile. It's based on a lot of assumptions that change month to month. And then there were a couple of O&M budget requests that were eliminated as they're no longer needed, and were taken care of through other adjustments. So total changes are here on the list. Attachment 2 in your packet shows detailed every change that was made since the budget workshop. So after the changes, the total midterm budget requests are $33 million, including $26.8 million in CIP project funding, $3.4 million in one-time O&M funding, and $2.7 million in ongoing annual expenses across all funds. Those are offset by $5.6 million in one-time grant revenues for CIP projects and $5.3 million in ongoing annual revenues in the general fund. The CIP requests are heavily weighted towards the various transportation-related projects, with a good chunk towards water, sewer, and other utility projects and park projects and municipal facilities. And then this chart shows the CIP by funding source and shows that the funding is pretty evenly distributed as well, with the majority of funds coming from the tax increment or EIFD funds because of that change of adding $4.5 million to the I Street Bridge project. So when all is said and done, all of the funds can handle the proposed budget adjustments and end with the positive balances and operating surpluses unless otherwise described and directed by council. The general fund will end with a projected surplus of $1.7 million after funding the proposed midterm requests. I mentioned last month that we delayed a little over $4 million in requests that we couldn't fund. And so you might be wondering why we've delayed over $4 million of requests if we have surplus remaining. But I also mentioned earlier that council's approved MOUs with all labor groups, some of which have increased costs in the next year or two. And so that surplus is necessary to cover those already approved obligations. And we've also got a couple of MOUs expiring at the end of this year that we'll be starting negotiations on. So it's imperative to maintain some capacity for those future expenses. So after funding the one-time requests, the general fund will end with a balance of $239,000. That seems pretty low, not much, but it should relieve the council to know that our reserves remain intact at 17% of general fund revenues at about $14.1 million, and along with the other general fund reserves, provide the city with nearly $17 million of safety net for the unexpected. And to put that into perspective, that's about 2.5 months worth of expenses in the general fund. So if we stopped receiving revenue, we could run for about 2.5 months on the reserves that we have set aside. So That's it for the budget adjustments. As I mentioned earlier, there are several related actions on the agenda tonight. First, we're asking that you waive the second reading, read by title and number only, and adopt Ordinance 2410, amending Title 2 of the Municipal Code pertaining to council compensation. The compensation for council members was set when the city incorporated in 1987. Since that time, the city's population has nearly doubled, and the demands on its elected officials have expanded as well. California Government Code recently changed, allowing monthly compensation up to $1,600 for a city of our size. So this ordinance proposes an increase to council compensation to $1,600 a month. If approved, the increase in compensation would go into effect after the election when the new council term begins in December. Also, as the midterm budget proposes 3 added positions, 2 reclassifications, division name changes, and an additional position was added when the biennial budget was adopted last June. That's effective July 1st, 2024. We are asking the council to approve the revised and updated authorized position list incorporating those changes. Due to title changes, a new salary schedule is also provided incorporating the new titles from the proposed reclassifications. Additionally, this item includes proposed changes to the benefit summaries for unrepresented groups, which includes specialists and professionals, confidential, management, safety management, and executive management groups. When an item contains benefit changes for department heads, the Brown Act, Government Code Section 54953, requires an oral report summarizing the recommended actions prior to the council taking final action on the item. In this case, the executive management benefit summary, which includes benefits for the department heads, now references bilingual pay. It's not a new benefit, it's not a new cost, but it is the first time the benefit has been outlined in the benefit summary. So the City Council is being asked to approve the revised benefit summaries for the unrepresented labor groups as part of this action. And that concludes my presentation, and I would like to turn it over to the council for questions, comments, and to carry out the recommended actions.
Thank you so much, Roberta. Do any of my council member colleagues have any questions on the staff presentation?
Mayor Pro Tem, do you have one quick
Okay, great.
question? Thank
Councilmember Alcala.
I heard you say that the I Street project was $4 million, is that correct?
This midterm budget includes $4.5 million of EIFD funds contributed to the project.
Okay, earlier at our meeting, I heard $6.3 million.
Yes.
Okay.
The reason for that is that the City Council has previously approved about $1.6 million. We just haven't been able to transfer it because the PFA had not approved budget policies. So now that they've approved the budget policies, we can transfer the money that was already approved by council along with the additional $4.5 million, which together is that $6 million that the PFA approved today.
Okay, thank you. The only question.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Councilmember Alcala. Councilmember Roscoe.
Thank you. Thank you, Roberta. I know that we spent an extensive amount of time last month discussing this. I know this is more for brevity since it's the second reading. With that stated, I wanted to reiterate my commitment to the 17% reserve. I appreciate getting that update and being reassured that we are still in a healthy position. And, you know, I remain committed to ensuring that we do not have to tap into that unless, of course, it became dire straits. Because quite frankly, that is hopefully our insurance against anything, you know, as far as cushion when it comes to economic stability. I also wanted to, you'd mentioned just a moment ago, and even though this wasn't something I planned to highlight since you did, the staffing reserve, the overhire reserve. Yeah, several years ago, we did create this fund in hopes that we could use it to recruit and hire new police officers to the department. Can you give us a quick update as to where we have been with this reserve and whether or not we've tapped into it for the purposes originally intended?
I can speak to the reserve, but you might need someone from HRPD to speak to the actual hiring and recruiting. We have not had to dip into the reserve, but that doesn't mean that we haven't done overhiring. So when we created this reserve, we set it aside to say we want the ability to overhire if we know that we're going to have vacancies or if we have an especially great recruitment that gives us an opportunity to pick up some great people and we only have 1 or 2 vacancies. Most of those overhires are accomplished and funded through savings within the budget already. And so if we don't go over the budget, we don't dip into that reserve. So by the end of the year, for the most part, all of those things have worked out. We haven't had to dip into the reserve, but we have implemented overhires on several occasions since that policy was adopted. It just so happens that there's been sufficient savings to offset those additional costs.
So what I'm hearing is that, and it looks like you have backup behind you, but what I'm hearing is that we have not been, there's been no impediment to our ability to effectively hire new officers as a result of any budget deficits at this juncture?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. Caitlin from HR. So as of right now, we are actually, I think we have conditional job offers out for every one of our pending vacancies. So there have been certain points where, as Roberta explained, we've had to get authority for the overhire, but we haven't actually had to implement the overhire because then due to additional turnover, we've had a vacancy, and that's for police and fire as well. So I'm anticipating with the recruitment efforts that we're doing right now that we may actually have to tap into it. I don't necessarily know if we'll go into the reserve fund or if budget offset from salary savings will be enough to compensate for it. But we have very strong recruiting efforts going on with the police department right now. So I'm hoping that we'll get to that point where we have to get additional authority.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Could so I would love to hear from Chief Strange, and also this is, I think, a really good thing to emphasize in regards to, because I think we understand it, but I think it's something that we hear from the community pretty regularly and that I've heard over the years. And so this overhire was actually implemented, I actually think before my time on the council. And so it's always existed, but we haven't really been able to fully staff our police department because, as we just heard, we've had vacancies. We haven't had to tap into this overhire. I would love to hear, Chief Strange, from you in regards to what you imagine the future might look like on this overhire.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I think a very relevant question. So I think in this case, I have good news, and good news. So I believe we are on track because of shifting our focus into recruitment with a much more intensity. I think we are going to be in an opportunity to tap into the overhire by the end of this calendar year if we keep on track. That's the first time since I came to the council in July of 2020 and asked to actually shift funding from some vacant officer positions to create our Community Outreach and Support Division, which is doing wonderful things for the community and the homeless community specifically. So that's a good, and the other one's a good. When I say that and say that we're going to get to the point of potentially tapping into overhiring, that is going above the 72 funded positions that we do have. So we went from 77, took the funding from 5 vacant positions, created a new division, and we are just going to hopefully reach that 72 mark again. So we haven't been above that mark, to that mark, sometimes not even close to that mark in the last few years, but we are seeing some positive outlook in recruitment. So we're excited about that. We're excited about other prospects that might create more revenue for the city to actually have us grow and grow in a way that we think can help serve the community better as its police department.
Thank you so much, Chief Strange. Great questions. Councilmember Roscoe, did you have any more? You look like you do.
Yeah,
You got it.
on that last question, Chief, or that last comment, when you say we're looking at other possibilities to help our department grow, what would be the ideal situation if we were to fully staff our department and meet the needs of the residents in our community, a very big growing community?
I mean, it's hard to think about the possibilities of what increased revenue could do for the police department, probably other operations departments as well. But I know the growth of the city has been such that we have not kept up. And I have officers that are very dedicated to this job and to this community that feel like they just can't deliver at the level that they want to. They think that this community deserves. And so to answer that question would be difficult, but I think when I look at staffing levels, let's say 20 years ago, and just think about just a simple equation of the ratio of officers to population, that ratio from 20 years ago certainly has not been maintained. That might be a difference of as many as 25 officers if we were to maintain that ratio. So we have had great growth, and the city's complexion has changed, I think, in many positive ways over the last 25 years. But now there comes a time where I think we do have to, as leaders in the community, play some catch up and sort of master the mundane, the stuff that just isn't, it's not sexy at all, but we need to do it. And so I'm hoping that you know, if things pan out and things go well and we're able to shift and find other revenues, then perhaps some of that growth can happen, not just in the police department, but other key operational areas of the city.
Well, I do want to say thank you for your leadership with our department, and also to all of the officers who serve our community night and day. I know that we have always received their commitment to public safety in this community. With that stated, I also know that with a growing city and new housing and now an upcoming season of very busy sports activities, that would likely result in a greater need. And so with that stated, thank you. I know that our city has been safe. We are working as hard as we can to maintain that. But of course, there are a lot of other factors that go into that we must factor in when we're looking at whether or not we can always receive, full funding and whatnot. So thank you for that overview. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief Strange. Hey, Councilmember Roscoe, any other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, don't leave yet.
I'm not going anywhere.
Any other questions?
I do have a quick question.
Okay.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem. It's a mouthful.
It is, it is.
Thank you. Roberta, great presentation. Appreciate the detail on all of this. You just dig into it, fine tooth comb. You had mentioned the change in our revenues, and I think the TOT number, I think you said it increased like $150,000 that we weren't anticipating. Was that the number? It's not a huge number.
About $175,000.
$175,000, not a huge number. Do we have any data about why the increase in TOT happened? I think I know the answer is no, but I'm wondering if from your end, you saw any certain spikes at the time of year, or it was just you budgeted low, and our
It's
occupancy
kind of
went up?
hard for us to see that. We get those revenues quarterly. I can look at if in a particular quarter we received, more, but it's also somewhat cyclical. I know there's also been hotel development and recovery since COVID, and so the numbers have been growing quite a bit over the last few years, more than what I expected, for sure. But I have not done the analysis to see if there was a particular time event or something that might have spiked them.
Okay, I think it's fantastic that this is additional revenue from TOT. Makes me think of the Tourism Improvement District that we're in the process of forming, and the possible assessment on top of that, which could continue to grow and be used for marketing to make the TOT grow and then continue our general budget growth. So I like seeing that number increased. Not a huge number, but it's still moving in the right direction. So thank you.
If I may, I forgot to say, did you guys get one of these?
Yes.
Okay, this is our new budget in brief, little budget summary. It's a 2-pager. There's not much here, but it's at least something for you to have in your hands, and I wanted to share that with you. We'll be posting this on the website, assuming you approve the budget tonight.
It's a great infographic.
Thank you. I'm not going to say, I didn't do the infographic. I pulled some information together, but we have a wonderful graphics team who pulled all of this together and made it look amazing. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, team. Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Sapicio Hall. All right. With that, Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak cards on this item?
We have no request to speak on this item.
All right. I'm going to bring it back to council. Any other questions, comments on this item? Okay, I'm looking. No other comments or questions.
Move the recommended action.
Read my mind. Thank you so much. Councilmember Orozco moves to approve the mechanism. Okay. Councilmember Alcala seconds. They're making my job so easy, Madam Clerk. Can you call the roll?
Councilmember Sulpicio Hall.
Aye.
Councilmember Alcala.
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Early.
Aye. All right. With that, the motion passes. Thank you so much, Roberta. All right. We will now proceed to our administrative function, part 2. It's the agenda starting with council communications. Are there any reports or other communications from my fellow council members?
Aye.
All right, Councilmember Alcala says not tonight.
Just briefly, it's going to be really exciting and uneventful. On August 14th, 2024, the Sacramento Area Sewer District met for a regular meeting, very short meeting. We approved some change orders for the Creek Crossing project. In addition, the Echo Roads septage disposal facility, as well as a second amended agreement to Carrillo Engineers to provide engineering services for the Rio Consumnes Correctional Center pump station, which is really important. It's a correctional center. But with that, we also received a director and district and engineer matters, including some communications. Because my eyesight is bad tonight. We won't be meeting until September 11th, as our upcoming meeting has been canceled on the 28th. But I think that's the gist of it. Yeah. We also received a quarterly report of backup infrastructures claims for April 1st, 2024 and June 30th, 2024.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, Councilmember Orozco. With that, we will move on to our final items. Council calendar.
Yes, Amanda's on vacation tonight for the week, but I'm going to go ahead and combine that item with the manager's report. That's
Perfect.
okay.
Thank you.
We have some items. So first on the council calendar, a couple of upcoming groundbreakings. One is the Rec Center tennis court lighting project. So over at the high school / rec center, we have lights that have been installed. We're going to do that on Wednesday, October 23rd at 6:45 p.m. to catch the sunset lighting. The second one was mentioned earlier tonight. We don't have a date for it yet, but it's more to put it on your radar. The State Streets Road Rehab Project. We're working on dates likely to be in October, so look for emails or other communication from our staff. We want to make sure the council has an opportunity to be there, along with some of our commissioners. We'll do our best to make sure it's a date that works for everyone on that one. It's a big project. And then I emailed earlier about this one, but the Power Bridge dinner is coming up on September 8th at 4:30. So as in past years, we make sure we have seats for the council. So just please check your email and respond to RSVP for that. And then in terms of the upcoming council meeting schedule, we're working on some changes. We've actually have an update for a special meeting that's going to be on September 12th. That's a Thursday. It'll still be at 7 o'clock. It's a meeting to only consider, the only item is to consider the development agreement and other items related to the Arboro project in Southport. So again, there'll be no other items on that agenda. It's going to be solely focused on Yarborough. And then that will be followed by our regular meeting on September 18th. So that's still a go. We do have several conflicts on different weeks in October. We were only planning to have, I believe, one meeting that month as it was. But we have out-of-town trips for council members that are participating in various events. There's a good chance we may recommend not actually having a meeting that month given those conflicts. But I've checked with all our department heads and staff, and there aren't any items that would otherwise need to go in October that can't wait until November. So just stay tuned for that, and we'll let you know once we're confirmed either way. And then for me, just to let you know, I'm going to be completely off the grid for the next few days, participating in the ALF program. We have our wilderness trip coming up, and so it's from tomorrow through Tuesday. John Robinson, our deputy city manager, is going to be in charge tomorrow and Friday, and then Amanda will be back on Monday, and we'll be in this role until I'm back on Wednesday. So thank you.
And on that note, I think we did get a communication that might be a little updated that there's going to be a State Streets road rehabilitation gutter improvement groundbreaking on September 12th at around 10 a.m. Is that okay? But so I just wanted to put that out there in case members of the community. It would be at the Willie DePrado Park, also known as formerly Circle Park.
That's great. Thank you so much, Councilmember Orozco. And thank you so much, City Manager. I'm going to go to City Attorney report.
Nothing to report tonight.
All right, great. Staff direction from City Council members. Okay, looking to my left and right. No. All right, we have no agendized future agenda item request by our council. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Okay, Orozco moves. Alcala seconds.
No, I think it was me.
Oh, well, you came in at the same time. Orozco, are you okay with Alcala motioning first?
No, I didn't motion, it was Verna.
Oh, it's Verna.
Yeah.
Oh,
It was
okay.
me, second.
So Sulpicio Hull seconds. Orozco motions first.
This is taking longer than the actual agenda.
Councilmember Sulpicio Hull.
Aye.
Councilmember Acala.
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Early.
Aye. And with that, we end my first meeting as vice mayor.
Hey.
Adjourn. Nice job.